I don't know what that looks like. This discussion hasn't happened.
The morning started like any other. Gray light filtering through half-closed blinds, the kettle hissing in the kitchen, the low hum of a fridge filling the silence that used to hold laughter. The house stood perfectly still, too still, like it was holding its breath. Trust doesn't break in one loud crack. It fractures quietly. Hairline lines running through routines until the whole structure gives way. That was the kind of morning this was. Evelyn poured coffee into a chipped mug that had survived every move, every argument, every apology. She wasn't sure why she still used it. Maybe out of habit, maybe because she liked to test what could endure. Down the hall, the sound of a door creaked open. Daniel's footsteps followed, uneven and heavy. She didn't turn around. The house had become a map of avoidance. Where to stand so they wouldn't cross paths, how to speak without saying anything that mattered. They had spent months pretending that work stress explained the distance, that long hours justified the late replies, that silence was just tiredness. But pretending has a cost, and it always comes due. Last night, when she found the message thread left open on the laptop, the one that began with, "You're easy to talk to," the debt arrived. She hadn't confronted him right away. She closed the laptop, went to bed, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Sleep wouldn't come. Only the reel of small memories played. His sudden secrecy with his phone, the extra showers, the way he laughed at texts he wouldn't explain. By morning, she wasn't angry. She was hollow. When he walked into the kitchen, the first thing he said was, "You're up early." The tone was casual, almost kind. It landed like a slap. She wanted him to feel the weight of what she knew, but instead she said, "Couldn't sleep." Her voice was flat, unrecognizable even to herself. He poured his coffee, added too much sugar the way he did when he was nervous. She watched the grains sink, dissolve, vanish. "Something wrong?" he asked. That simple question, pretending ignorance, was what broke her stillness. "You should tell me," she said. He frowned. "Tell you what?" "Whatever it is you've been hiding." The words came slow, careful. She didn't want to accuse. She wanted him to choose truth. Silence. Then, "Eve, I don't know what you're talking about." There it was, the script. Deny, deflect, delay. She'd rehearsed this scene in her head and hated how predictable it felt now that it was real. She turned, leaning against the counter. "The messages, Daniel. On your laptop." He froze. For a second, she saw something raw flicker across his face. Fear, guilt, calculation. Then he exhaled and looked down at his coffee. "You went through my laptop?" "I was checking the calendar. You left the chat open. What exactly did you see?" "Enough." He nodded slowly, as if testing how much damage control he could still do. "It's not what you think." "It never is," she said. The air thickened. Even the walls seemed to inch closer, listening. A car passed outside, the sound distant and normal, an insult to the world collapsing inside four walls. He set the mug down, hands trembling just slightly. "It was just talking," he said. "Someone from work. I was venting. You know how things have been between us." "You mean quiet?" "Because I thought quiet was better than cruel." "Come on, Eve, that's not fair." "Neither is lying." He sighed, rubbed the bridge of his nose. "You always jump to conclusions. And you always act like the truth is an overreaction." For a long stretch, neither spoke. The only sound was the slow ticking of the kitchen clock. Time, impartial and merciless, kept moving. Evelyn thought of all the nights she stayed late cleaning up, of the lunches she packed, of the plans she postponed because he said work was busy. She thought of how she believed him every single time. Trust, she realized, isn't destroyed by betrayal alone. It's corroded by the realization that you've ignored the signs. "I didn't sleep," she said quietly. "I kept trying to make sense of it. What hurts most isn't the messages. It's that you had to find someone else to talk to about me." He looked up sharply. "It wasn't about you." "Then what was it about?" He hesitated. "I don't know. I felt unseen." Her laugh was small, bitter. Unseen? Daniel, you were the center of every decision we made. The job, the house, the savings, all of it revolved around you. I didn't ask for that. You didn't refuse it either. The conversation twisted, circling blame like vultures. He tried logic, she answered with ache. Words became weapons. Still, beneath the anger, a fragile thread of wanting remained. Wanting to be understood, to be forgiven, to rewind. When trust breaks, memory betrays you. You start questioning which moments were real. Was his laughter genuine? Was the affection habitual? She caught herself thinking back to their last vacation, the one where he'd stayed glued to his phone. She had told herself it was emails. Now she saw it differently. Did you love her? She asked. The question came out smaller than she intended. He looked startled. No, God, no. It wasn't, Eve, it wasn't love. Then what was it? He opened his mouth, closed it again. Finally, escape. That single word hung heavy between them. It was honest, maybe the first honest thing he'd said all morning. And it cut deeper than any confession of love would have. She nodded slowly. Escape from me? From everything. The pressure, the tension. I just needed to feel like myself again. And lying helped with that? I didn't mean for it to go that far. It never starts with meaning, she said. It starts with permission. He looked away, jaw tight. You make it sound like I planned this. You didn't have to plan it. You just had to keep choosing it. He winced. The truth rarely lands softly. They stood on opposite sides of the counter, two strangers sharing a kitchen. Years of shared routines shrank to an inventory of grievances. Every photo on the wall felt like evidence. She wanted to scream, to cry, to slam something. But she didn't. She sat down instead, hands folded, voice steady. So what now? I don't know, he said. What do you want me to do? Tell me the truth. All of it. He hesitated, then began speaking in fragments. How the messages started after a late project. How compliments felt like air after months of silence. How one secret made room for another. His words spilled out, not as excuses but as confessions. She listened, numb, noting how easily honesty arrived once the damage was done. When he finished, the room was quiet again. Her coffee had gone cold. She stood, walked to the window. Outside, the neighbors' kids were playing with chalk on the driveway, drawing hearts and stick figures. The innocence of it hurt. You know, she said without turning, I used to believe trust was built on honesty. Now I think it's built on consistency. You can't rebuild that with words. He nodded, staring at the floor. I want to try. I don't think you understand what trying means. It's not just apologizing. It's waking up every day and proving you mean it. It's being transparent when it's inconvenient. It's giving up privacy for peace until peace is strong enough to stand on its own. He didn't respond. Maybe because he couldn't. Maybe because she was right. The clock ticked again, marking another minute lost to what-ifs. She turned around finally. I'm not sure if I can do this, she said. But I also know I can't keep pretending nothing happened. Then what do? We stop pretending. That's the first step. They spent the rest of the morning in uneasy truce. He called in sick. She worked from her laptop at the table. No music played. Every sound, keyboard clicks, spoon against cup, felt magnified. Yet in that silence, something fragile stirred. The faint possibility that facing pain head-on was better than avoiding it. In the afternoon, rain began to fall. The house smelled of wet wood and coffee. She caught him watching her from across the room, eyes heavy with regret. For the first time, she didn't look away. She didn't forgive him either, but she met his gaze long enough for him to know the bridge wasn't entirely burned. It was just broken. Trust, she thought, doesn't end in a single day. It ends in stages: disbelief, anger, exhaustion, acceptance. Today was only the first. The conversation had changed the house. Tomorrow would change what it meant to live in it. As night came, she lay awake again, listening to the rain on the roof. The same ceiling, the same bed, but everything different. Beside her, Daniel breathed unevenly, half asleep. She thought of the word escape and realized that what she wanted now wasn't revenge or reconciliation. It was clarity. Somewhere in the dark, she whispered, "We can't go back." He didn't answer. Maybe he was asleep. Maybe he had nothing left to say. Either way, the silence felt final. Outside, thunder rolled far away like a warning or a promise. The house, once filled with trust, now echoed with truth, and truth, she realized, was louder than any storm. The days after the truth always move strangely. Time doesn't flow, it drips. Each hour feels heavy, each breath deliberate. For Evelyn, the second morning felt worse than the first. At least yesterday had adrenaline, the shock of discovery, the sharpness of confrontation. Today had quiet. Quiet is cruel. It gives you space to think, and thinking makes pain precise. The house smelled like rain and detergent. Daniel had left early for work, or maybe just to avoid her. He'd texted before dawn, "Didn't want to wake you. We'll talk later." She read it 3 times, then put her phone face down on the counter. Later had become his favorite word. Later meant postponing accountability. Later meant maybe she'd calm down and forget. But she wasn't going to forget. Not this time. She made breakfast without tasting it. Toast, black coffee, half an apple. The routines felt mechanical, like muscle memory detached from meaning. Every object reminded her of before. The pan they picked out together, the chipped mug, the 2 matching plates that now looked like evidence of something unfinished. Outside, a neighbor mowed the lawn. Ordinary life went on, mercilessly normal. She wondered how many other houses on this street carried quiet heartbreak inside. Maybe more than she thought. By noon, she'd cleaned everything. Counters wiped, laundry folded, floors shining, as if order could substitute for peace. Cleaning had always been her way of controlling chaos. But when she finally stopped, leaning on the broom handle, the silence returned like a verdict. That afternoon, Daniel came home early. His tie was loose, his eyes red. He hovered in the doorway like a guest. "Hey," he said softly. She didn't answer right away. She just studied him, the slump in his shoulders, the hesitation in his voice. He looked smaller. Guilt does that. "I told my boss I needed a few days," he said. "I can't focus." She nodded. "Good. I thought maybe we could talk." "You said that yesterday." "I mean really talk." She set the broom aside and gestured to the table. "Then talk." He sat, clasping his hands, searching for an opening. "I've been thinking a lot. About what I did. About us." "Thinking's easy," she said. "Living with it is harder. I know. And I know saying sorry isn't enough, but I'm sorry." She leaned back, arms crossed. "You've said that before." He looked down. "You want me to explain?" "I can." "No," she said quietly. "I want you to understand. There's a difference." He looked confused. "I do understand. You understand that you hurt me. You don't understand what you took. Trust isn't just believing someone's words. It's feeling safe in their silence. You took that." He swallowed hard. "I want to earn it back. How?" "I'll do whatever you need. Therapy, transparency, anything." Her lips tightened. "You say that now. But rebuilding isn't about grand gestures. It's about small, boring honesty, the kind that never makes a speech." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll start with small." She looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. "Fine. Then start by telling me the truth I didn't ask for yesterday." He blinked. "What do you mean? How long did it go on?" He hesitated. "A few months. Be specific. 5, maybe 6. She flinched. 6 months of lies wrapped in smiles. Half a year of living with a stranger who said he loved her. She felt the air thicken. "Did you meet her?" He hesitated again, and that pause was an answer. "Yes, once for coffee." Her eyes closed. "And you didn't think that was crossing a line?" "I told myself it was harmless." "Harmless," she repeated, almost whispering. "That's the word people use when they're already guilty." He opened his mouth to defend himself, but she raised a hand. Just don't. I can't hear excuses today." They sat in silence again. The clock ticked. A car horn sounded in the distance. The world kept turning, indifferent. After a while, he said, What do you want me to do now? Give me space, she said. But not distance, he frowned. I don't understand. I mean, stay in the house. Sleep in the guest room. I don't want you disappearing. But I can't share a bed with you right now. He nodded slowly. Okay. She stood, walked to the window, staring at the gray sky. We used to be good at talking, she said. Yeah. What happened? He gave a half shrug. Maybe we stopped listening. Or maybe, she said, we only listened when it was easy. That night, he moved his things into the guest room. She heard him unpack quietly, toothbrush, pillow, the small noises of separation. It felt like watching someone die in slow motion, except he was still breathing down the hall. She didn't cry, not yet. The tears were waiting, patient. The following morning, he made breakfast, an attempt at normalcy. Pancakes, bacon, the smell of syrup filling the kitchen. He placed a plate in front of her. You should eat. She looked at the food, then at him. Don't make me pancakes like everything's fine. I'm trying, he said softly. So am I, she replied. They ate in silence. Halfway through, she asked, Did she know you were married? He nodded. Yes. And she said it wasn't her business, that whatever was wrong between us wasn't her fault. Evelyn pushed her plate away. It never is. After breakfast, she went for a walk. The wind was sharp. Leaves scattered across the pavement. She found herself at the park bench where they used to sit after dinner walks years ago. The memory stung. She sat there for a long time, watching strangers. Parents pushing strollers, teenagers with headphones, an old couple sharing a soda. The simplicity of their lives felt foreign. She envied their ignorance. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Therapist recommended by HR. I'll make an appointment. I mean it. She typed. Okay. Then deleted it and typed again. Do it. Back home, she saw him on the porch, phone pressed to his ear, speaking softly. When he hung up, he said, Appointment set for Friday. Couple session if you're willing. I'll think about it. That's fair. He looked relieved just to have not been dismissed. That evening, they shared dinner, take-out Thai. It wasn't peace, but it was civility. She noticed how he kept glancing at her between bites, gauging her temperature. She ignored it. Let him feel the discomfort. It was his turn. Later, as she washed dishes, he appeared beside her. Let me, he said, reaching for a plate. No, she said. You made the mess. I'll clean it. He hesitated. That's not what I meant. I know. She could feel him wanting to say something more, but he didn't. Instead, he just dried the dishes quietly. Two people standing side by side, performing the choreography of normal life while grief hung invisible between them. That night, she wrote in a notebook. She hadn't journaled in years. The first line read, If trust is a bridge, we're standing on its remains. She didn't write to forgive him. She wrote to understand herself. In the guest room, Daniel lay awake too. He stared at the ceiling, realizing for the first time how loud the house was at night. Every creak, every pipe groan, every echo of what he'd broken. He thought about calling the woman from work to tell her it was over. But that would make it real, not just wrong, but finished. He turned the phone off instead, terrified of his own impulses. By the third day, they'd settled into an uneasy rhythm. He worked from the living room, she from the dining table. They spoke only when necessary. Politeness replaced connection. The house, once warm, had become neutral territory. One afternoon, the power flickered out during a storm. The lights went dark, and she instinctively reached for him in the dark. For a second, they were just two people again, startled by thunder. He found a flashlight, set it on the table, and the beam illuminated their faces. Tired, drawn, human. Remember that camping trip? He asked softly. She smiled faintly despite herself. When it rained the whole weekend? Yeah, you kept saying the tent was leaking, and I said it was natural ventilation. She shook her head. You were impossible. I still am. The smile faded. The warmth dissolved as quickly as it came. Yeah, she said quietly. You are. He wanted to reach out, but he didn't. He knew one wrong move could turn progress into pity. When the power came back, she retreated to the bedroom, closing the door. He stayed in the hallway, staring at the thin slice of light beneath it. It felt like a border he might never cross again. Days blurred into a week. Therapy approached like a storm she wasn't ready for. But on the eve of the session, something shifted. He knocked gently on her door. "Can I come in?" She hesitated. "Why?" "I just want to talk." "No excuses," she sighed. "Fine." He sat at the edge of the bed, keeping distance. "I've been reading about rebuilding trust," he said. "Everything says it takes time, consistency, and transparency. I can do those. But what if you don't want to stay long enough to see it?" She looked at him. "Then you still do it. Because it's the right thing, not because it gets you a result." He nodded slowly. "Okay." Then she asked, "Why now? Why did you finally want to talk tonight?" He smiled faintly. "Because I missed hearing you talk, even when it's hard." That simple line caught her off guard. She looked away, blinking back tears. "I don't forgive you," she whispered. "I know. But I don't hate you either." He nodded. "That's enough for now." When he left the room, she felt both lighter and heavier. The contradiction was exhausting. But for the first time since the confrontation, she didn't feel completely alone inside her own house. That night, as she lay awake, she realized that healing wasn't going to arrive like a revelation. It would come in fragments. Awkward dinners, reluctant talks, therapy sessions filled with silences. She didn't know if their marriage would survive, but she did know one thing. Avoidance had ended. The conversation had changed the house, yes, but maybe it had also given it a chance to breathe again. Outside, the storm had passed. The moonlight spilled across the wet street, reflecting faintly through the window. Somewhere down the hall, Daniel's door clicked shut. 2 rooms, 1 roof, a fragile truce. And in that quiet, Evelyn whispered the only truth she could manage. "We're not fixed, but we're facing it." The first therapy session took place on a Friday afternoon, the kind of gray day that doesn't promise anything. They sat in the car outside the building for almost 10 minutes before either moved. Evelyn stared out the window at the rain collecting in the parking lot. Daniel gripped the steering wheel like he was bracing for impact. Neither wanted to be the first to open the door. Finally, she said quietly, "We should go in." He nodded but didn't move. "Yeah, just give me a second." She watched his reflection in the window. Eyes tired, shoulders slumped, mouth set in a line somewhere between fear and shame. She almost felt sorry for him, almost. The therapist's office smelled of cedar and coffee. The walls were pale yellow, soft light filling the room. It felt designed to calm people who didn't want to be there. Books lined the shelves. Communication in Marriage, The Science of Forgiveness, Boundaries After Betrayal. Evelyn couldn't look at the titles too long without feeling the sting of irony. The therapist, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a voice so calm it almost irritated Evelyn, smiled and gestured toward 2 chairs. "I'm Marla," she said. "I'm not here to take sides. I'm here to make sure both of you get heard." Daniel nodded immediately, eager to seem cooperative. Evelyn just folded her arms and said, "Okay." Marla smiled gently. "That's a start." The first 15 minutes were awkward introductions. Who they were, how long they'd been married, what brought them here. When it came to that last question, Daniel spoke first. "I made a mistake," he said. "A big one." Evelyn looked at him, expression unreadable. Marla nodded. "And you, Evelyn?" "I'm here because pretending everything's fine isn't working anymore." That hung in the air. The therapist didn't rush to fill the silence. She let it breathe, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, she asked, "Do either of you want to tell me what happened?" Daniel cleared his throat. That crossed a line. I got close to someone at work. Nothing physical, but emotionally it was wrong. I hid it." Evelyn kept her gaze fixed on the small table between them, tracing the edge of her wedding ring with her thumb. She didn't interrupt, though she could feel her pulse rising. Marla nodded. "And how long has this been going on, or since it ended?" It ended a couple of weeks ago. Maybe a little more. Because you chose to end it? Because I got caught, he said quietly. That honesty surprised Evelyn. She looked up at him for the first time, not expecting this self-awareness. Marla nodded again. Thank you for saying that. Honesty, even when it's ugly, is where we start. Evelyn, what do you need to say right now? She exhaled, a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. I don't even know where to start. I feel stupid. I feel angry, and I feel small. Like I've been living someone else's life. Daniel's eyes filled with guilt. You're not stupid. Don't, she said sharply. Don't try to comfort me. You don't get to decide how I feel about what you did. Marla raised a hand gently. That's okay, Evelyn. You're allowed to draw that boundary. Daniel, for now, just listen. No defending, no fixing. He nodded. Okay. Evelyn continued, her voice trembling. I keep asking myself what I missed. How did I not see it? Or did I see it and just not want to believe it? Every night you'd come home tired, distracted. I thought you were overworked. I didn't think you were... Her voice broke. She pressed her lips together, forcing the tears back. I didn't think you were somewhere else. Marla handed her a tissue box. You don't have to hold it in here. Evelyn shook her head. If I start, I might not stop. Daniel whispered, I'm sorry. Marla looked at him. Right now, Daniel, when you say sorry, what are you apologizing for? Be specific, he hesitated. For lying. For making her feel like she wasn't enough. For destroying something I didn't even realize I was destroying. Evelyn said quietly, You realized it. You just thought you'd get away with it. He closed his eyes. You're right. For a moment, the room was painfully quiet again. Marla finally spoke. You've both said the words that matter. Betrayal, pain, dishonesty. That's the foundation of why you're here. The next step is to decide if there's anything left to rebuild. Evelyn looked at her sharply. You mean if I can forgive him? Marla shook her head. Forgiveness comes later. Right now, it's about safety. Emotional safety. You can't heal in a place that still feels dangerous. Daniel frowned. How do I make her feel safe again? You can't make her, Marla said. You can only become safe, predictable, consistent, open. No secrets, no surprises. Trust grows in repetition. Evelyn looked down at her hands. That's the problem. I don't trust his repetition anymore. Marla nodded. That's fair. But if you're here, some part of you hasn't given up. Evelyn didn't answer. The session ended with a strange sense of exhaustion. Not closure, just fatigue from dragging something heavy into the light. As they left, Marla said, Next week we'll talk about boundaries and rebuilding communication. In the meantime, both of you should write one page, what you need from each other right now. Be honest, don't censor it. Outside, the rain had stopped. The world looked clean in that deceptive way it does after a storm. They drove home in silence. The windshield wipers clicked in rhythm, even though there was nothing to wipe. Halfway home, Daniel said quietly, I didn't expect her to say all that. Evelyn stared ahead. She said what everyone knows but no one wants to admit. Once you break something, even if you glue it back, it's never the same shape. He nodded slowly, but maybe it can still hold. She didn't answer. That night, Evelyn sat at her desk with a blank page in front of her. What do you need from him right now? The question sounded simple, but the answer was a maze. She started writing. I need you to stop performing remorse and start living it. I need you to tell the truth before I ask for it. I need you to understand that love without respect is cruelty disguised as care. I need to feel like I'm not waiting for another shoe to drop. By the time she finished, her handwriting was trembling, the ink smudged by tears she hadn't noticed falling. Down the hall, Daniel wrote too. His list was shorter, messier. I need patience I don't deserve. I need her to see that I'm trying, even when I fail. I need to forgive myself enough to keep showing up. He stared at the paper for a long time, hating the man he'd become. He wanted to erase months with a single gesture, but there's no shortcut through consequence. When they compared notes at the next session, Marla read them silently, then said, You're both writing the same story in different handwriting. You're both scared, Evelyn frowned. I'm not scared. I'm angry. Anger, Marla said gently, is what fear looks like when it wears armor. The truth of that stung. Evelyn looked away. Marla leaned forward. Let's talk about what happens next. Daniel, what do you do when Evelyn withdraws? When she doesn't want to talk? I give her space. And then? I wait. And what does waiting look like? He hesitated. I check my phone. I pace. I start imagining she's done with me for good. Marla nodded. That's anxiety, not waiting. Waiting is stillness without panic. You both need stillness, Evelyn asked. How do you find that? By naming the truth instead of running from it, Marla said. You can't rebuild on fear. You can only rebuild on honesty. After the session, they walked to the parking lot in silence again, but this time, the silence felt softer. Less avoidance, more exhaustion. That night, when they got home, Daniel said, You don't have to sleep in the same bed. But will you sit with me in the living room for a while? She hesitated, then nodded. They sat together on opposite ends of the couch, watching a movie neither really saw. At one point, his hand rested near hers on the cushion. She didn't pull away, but she didn't move closer either. For that small, fragile moment, it was enough. Weeks passed. Therapy became routine. Every Friday, same room, same chairs. Some sessions were civil. Others tore open wounds they didn't know were still bleeding. One week, Marla asked Evelyn, What's your biggest fear right now? That I'll never stop checking for lies, she said. And you, Daniel? That I'll never be forgiven no matter what I do. Marla smiled sadly. Those two fears are mirror images. One's afraid of being hurt again. The other's afraid of being stuck as the villain forever. It was the first time Evelyn saw the situation not as a battlefield, but as a reflection. Both were hurting, just from different sides of the same wound. That night, when they left, the air felt lighter. For the first time in months, she caught herself humming while washing the dishes. She didn't notice until Daniel stopped in the doorway, listening quietly. Something funny? She asked, turning. He smiled faintly. No, just nice to hear you sound like yourself again. She looked at him for a moment, then said, Don't get used to it. He chuckled softly. Fair enough. Still, the small spark of normalcy lingered. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a beginning. A fragile peace built not on forgetting, but on facing the truth every day and choosing, however hesitantly, to stay present. For the first time since everything fell apart, Evelyn didn't feel trapped by the house. It didn't echo with betrayal anymore. It just breathed. By the time autumn came, the rhythm of their fragile peace had begun to feel almost natural. The house was quieter but not suffocating. There were good days and bad days. Mornings when Evelyn made coffee for both of them without thinking, and nights when she couldn't look at him without seeing the messages that broke her. Therapy helped in measured doses, but healing isn't linear. It rises, it dips, it circles back when you least expect it. It was a Thursday when things cracked again. Not shattered, not exploded, just cracked, the way a glass does when you pour hot water too fast. Daniel had been working late all week. Deadlines, meetings, new projects. He'd been careful to tell her everything this time, where he was, who he was with, when he'd be home. He texted pictures of his office, screenshots of his calendar. It should have reassured her, but instead it felt like surveillance, not transparency. Trust rebuilt under pressure can start to look a lot like proof on demand. That night the house was dim and still. Evelyn sat at the dining table, her laptop open but untouched. The clock ticked past 9 cow. He was late, not very, but enough to light that small old fear in her chest. She tried to ignore it, tried to tell herself he was in traffic. But then his text came, running behind. Don't wait up. Something about the wording, casual, familiar, hit a nerve. Don't wait up. That was what he used to text back then, during the months she didn't know he was lying. She stared at the message until the words blurred. Half an hour later, she refreshed his location app. The little blue dot didn't move. Office parking lot. Still, no calls, no updates. Her heart began to race. She told herself she wasn't going to spiral. Not again. But the longer she stared at the map, the more her breathing changed. Logic evaporated. Memory took over. The last time she'd checked, he'd been working late, too. When the door finally opened at 10:30, she was sitting in the dark living room, the only light coming from the street lamp outside. He froze in the doorway when he saw her. "Hey," he said softly. "Didn't mean to wake you." "I wasn't asleep." He hung his coat, glanced toward the kitchen. "I told you I'd be late. You said not to wait up." "I didn't think that meant something else." "Everything means something else now, Daniel," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Where were you, really?" "I told you." "At the office," she stood. "I checked your location. You were parked for an hour and a half." He sighed. "Because I couldn't think. I sat in the car and just didn't move. I was tired, Eve." She folded her arms. "That's convenient." His frustration flared. "Do you want me to start sending you live video proof? Should I FaceTime every time I breathe?" "Don't turn this around," she said quietly. "You made me this way." That stopped him. The anger drained out of his face. He rubbed the back of his neck, guilt replacing irritation. "You're right," he said finally. "I'm sorry. I should have told you I needed space before I left the office." "Space?" she repeated. "You had 6 months of space with someone else." He winced. "That's not fair. It's not supposed to be." Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. The refrigerator hummed. The rain tapped softly at the window. He took a step toward her. "I don't want to fight." "Then stop giving me reasons to." Her voice cracked at the end, betraying the exhaustion beneath her anger. He reached for her hand, but she pulled back. "Don't touch me when I'm trying to believe you," she whispered. He lowered his hand. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to understand that trust doesn't reset every time you apologize." He nodded, eyes wet. "I do understand. She cut him off. "No, you want to understand. But wanting isn't the same as doing." She turned and walked upstairs. He stayed standing in the living room, motionless. The house creaked as if reacting to the tension. When the bedroom door closed, he sank onto the couch and buried his face in his hands. He hated that she was right. He hated that part of him still needed to prove it even to himself. The next morning she woke up alone. His side of the bed was untouched. She found him asleep on the couch, his phone resting on his chest, the faint blue glow of unread messages on the screen. Her stomach twisted. She told herself not to look. She told herself she'd promised Marla she wouldn't snoop anymore. But promises feel flimsy when fear whispers louder. She picked up the phone. The screen lit up instantly. No password, not anymore. He'd removed it months ago as a gesture of transparency. There was a message at the top. "Rough night?" The name was Allison, HR. Her chest tightened. She scrolled. The exchange was brief. "Allison, saw you looked drained yesterday. You okay?" "Daniel, yeah, rough week." "Thanks for asking, Allison. Anytime. Don't forget to breathe." "Daniel, trying to." Nothing scandalous. Nothing damning. But the tone, the familiarity, was enough to undo weeks of fragile progress. When he woke, she was standing by the couch holding the phone. His heart dropped immediately. "Eve, who's Allison?" He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "HR, she helped set up the therapy coverage. And now she's your therapist too?" He exhaled. "It's nothing like that. She was just being kind. Kindness doesn't text at midnight." It wasn't midnight. Close enough. He stood, voice rising. "You're twisting this into something it's not." "Because I've lived through what it is," she snapped. "You think I don't recognize the start of it? The soft check-ins, the sympathetic words, the messages that sound harmless until they aren't?" He went silent, jaw tight. "Say something," she demanded. "I can't keep living on trial," he said finally. "I've done everything you asked. Therapy, honesty, no secrets. But you keep looking for proof that I'll fail." "Because I'm terrified that you will." Her voice broke again, and the anger collapsed into grief. "You say you want to rebuild? but you still don't see what it's like to live inside the wreckage. He stepped closer, tears welling in his own eyes now. Then tell me what to do. Stop needing me to tell you, she said. Just do better. She walked past him, out the front door, and kept walking down the street until the cold air cut her lungs. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't breathe inside that house anymore. Evelyn ended up at the therapist's office alone that afternoon. Marla listened quietly as she explained everything. When she finished, Evelyn said, "It's not even that he did something wrong this time. It's that I can't tell the difference anymore." Marla nodded slowly. That's what trauma does. It teaches you to expect the fire even when there's only smoke. I don't know how to unlearn that. You don't unlearn it, Marla said softly. You replace it. Over time, evidence of safety replaces evidence of danger. But that takes consistency. From him and patience. From you. Evelyn gave a bitter laugh. Patience is in short supply. Marla smiled gently. That's okay. You've been living in survival mode. Patience will return when you're safe again. Emotionally, not just physically. Evelyn stared at the floor. Sometimes I wonder if safety with him is even possible. Marla said, then maybe the question isn't, can you trust him again? Maybe it's, can you trust yourself again? Because that's where it starts. The words hit hard. Evelyn blinked, tears threatening again. That night, when she returned home, Daniel was waiting on the porch. His face looked older somehow, the strain visible in every line. I was worried, he said quietly. I needed space. I know. I just wanted to make sure you came back. She looked at him for a long moment. Do you want me to come back because you love me, or because you hate yourself without me? He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low. Both, she sighed. That's not enough. He nodded. Then I'll find more. They went inside. The house smelled of rain and leftover coffee. It felt weary, like both of them. He handed her a small envelope. I wrote something. You don't have to read it now. She took it without opening it. What is it? My version of the truth. No edits this time. She nodded and went upstairs. Hours later, she sat on the bed and unfolded the letter. It wasn't long, but it was raw. I lied because I was afraid of who I'd become if I didn't get constant validation. I wanted to feel wanted, but I never asked you to want me differently. I just went looking elsewhere. You deserved honesty, and I traded it for attention. Every time I told myself it wasn't real, I killed a small piece of what was. I don't want pity. I just want to be accountable. If you walk away, I'll understand. If you stay, I'll fight for a version of me that deserves it. She read it twice. The second time slower. The words weren't perfect, but they were unfiltered. And for the first time, she didn't feel manipulated, just seen. She placed the letter on her nightstand and turned off the lamp. In the dark, she whispered, I still don't trust you. From the hallway, his voice came softly. Then I'll keep earning it, even if you never say I did. Something in her chest shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe belief in the possibility. The following week, Marla had them both back in session. This time, Evelyn spoke first. I think I understand something now, she said. I kept waiting for him to prove he changed. But what I really needed was to prove to myself that I could stay without losing who I am. Marla smiled. That's the beginning of healing. Trust isn't given back. It's rebuilt by two people who finally know what it costs. Daniel nodded. Then that's what I'll do, even if it takes the rest of my life. Evelyn looked at him, searching for deception. This time she didn't see it. Only exhaustion and effort. And for the first time since everything fell apart, she believed he might actually mean it. Winter came quietly that year. The leaves that had burned gold in October were gone, leaving the trees skeletal, silent. The house sat under a thin crust of frost each morning, its windows clouded, its walls creaking against the cold. Inside, life continued, slow, deliberate, uncertain. Therapy had softened their edges. The fights had become conversations, the silence less hostile. But peace built on pain always feels temporary. like standing on ice that might crack under one wrong word. Evelyn woke earlier these days. She liked the stillness before sunrise, when Daniel was still asleep, and the house belonged only to her thoughts. She'd make tea and sit by the window, watching the streetlights fade as dawn crept in. Sometimes she caught herself smiling, small, startled smiles when she realized they hadn't fought for days, or when Daniel made her laugh by accident. Those moments were confusing. They felt like hope and guilt in the same breath. But trust isn't a straight road. It's a spiral, looping back through memories you thought you'd buried. One evening, just before Christmas, she found an old photo in a drawer, their wedding day. She was laughing, wind in her hair, his arm around her shoulders. The way he looked at her in that picture made her throat tighten. It wasn't the look of a man hiding things. It was the look of someone who truly believed love could fix anything. She stared at it for a long time, tracing the edges. Then she set it down and whispered, "What happened to us?" Behind her, Daniel's voice was quiet. "We forgot to protect it." She turned, startled. He stood in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Didn't mean to scare you," he said, offering one. She took it. "I didn't hear you come in." "I've learned to move quietly around you," he said with a faint, sad smile. "That's not good." "I know." He sat beside her. "I keep waiting for you to tell me what happens next." "I don't know yet," she admitted. "Some days I think I could forgive you. Other days I want to pack a bag and disappear." He nodded. "I'd understand either way." She looked at him. "Would you?" He hesitated. "No, but I'd try." They sat in silence, the clock ticking softly. The smell of pine drifted from the tree they'd put up last week, the first one they'd decorated together since everything broke. It stood in the corner like a fragile symbol of trying. "I read your letter again," she said. "Oh? I think it was the first time you've ever written something without trying to make yourself the hero." He exhaled slowly. "That's because I finally realized I wasn't." Something in his honesty disarmed her. She set her mug down. "You keep showing up." "I see that. But I still don't know if it's because you want me or because you can't stand what you did." "Both," he said softly. "But I'm learning that wanting you means respecting what you need, even if it's distance." She looked at him for a long moment, searching for the old reflex, the disbelief, the suspicion, but it didn't come. Only a tired kind of empathy. "You're different," she said. "I'm trying to be. And what if I still leave?" He swallowed. "Then at least you'll know I finally told the truth before you did." That night, she dreamt of water. She was standing on a frozen lake, the same one they'd visited years ago on their anniversary. The ice beneath her feet shimmered, clear enough to see the dark water below. Daniel stood on the opposite shore, calling her name. She took a step toward him. The ice cracked. Another step, louder. He reached out his hand. "Don't move!" But she did. She always did. The ice gave way beneath her, the cold swallowing her in a rush. She woke gasping, heart pounding, her skin damp with sweat. When she sat up, Daniel was there, half awake, eyes wide with worry. "You okay?" She nodded, breathless. "Just a dream." "What happened?" "I fell through the ice." He reached for her hand but stopped midway, uncertain. "You're here now," he whispered. She looked at him, eyes glistening in the dim light. "Am I?" The following morning, Marla called, their last scheduled session before the holidays. Evelyn almost didn't go, but something in her needed the closure or maybe the clarity. They sat across from the therapist one final time. "You've both come far," Marla said. "Not perfectly, but honestly. That matters," Evelyn nodded. "But what if honesty doesn't fix it?" "It's not supposed to," Marla said gently. "It just tells you what's real. Fixing comes after you decide what to do with that truth." Daniel looked at her, eyes soft. "What's your truth, Eve?" She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "That I love you. But I don't know if I can live with the version of us that exists now." He looked down. "Then maybe we have to let go of what we were to become something new." Marla smiled faintly. "Sometimes letting go is the most faithful thing you can do." That evening, the snow began to fall. Thick, steady flakes blanketed the street, muffling every sound. The world outside slowed to a hush. Evelyn stood by the window watching it. Daniel joined her, hands in his pockets. "It's beautiful," he said. She nodded. "It's quiet." He looked at her profile, the calm in her eyes, the distance in her expression. "What are you thinking?" She took a long breath. "That maybe quiet isn't peace. Maybe it's just waiting for a decision." He frowned. "What decision?" She turned to him, tears gathering. "Whether I'm staying or leaving." The air went still. Even the ticking clock seemed to pause. Daniel's throat tightened. "Do you know which way you're leaning?" She looked at him, the man who'd broken her heart and then tried, piece by piece, to rebuild it with trembling hands. The man she once trusted without question, now a stranger she still somehow loved. "I think," she said slowly, "I'll know tomorrow." He nodded once, eyes glistening. "Then I'll be here. Whatever you decide." That night she couldn't sleep. She wandered the house, the hallway, the kitchen, the living room. Every room carried a memory: laughter, lies, reconciliation. The walls themselves seemed to hum with ghosts. At midnight, she stopped at the front door. Her suitcase sat beside it, half-packed. She stared at it for a long time, then looked up the staircase toward the soft glow of the bedroom light. Daniel was awake too. She could see his shadow moving across the floorboards. For a long moment, she stood between two worlds, the comfort of what she knew and the terror of what came next. She whispered, "When trust breaks, can it ever really be whole again?" The house didn't answer. She placed her hand on the doorknob, then froze as her phone buzzed on the counter. One new message. "Unknown number." The preview line glowed in the dark. "He didn't tell you everything." Her breath caught. She stared at the screen, heartbeat pounding in her ears. Outside, the snow kept falling. Silent, relentless, covering everything that had come before.